I'd been at the lakeside cabin in Halliburton for 3 days with my grandson Noah. 3 days of peace before a 4-alarm fire waiting at home. He's 8 now, and I'd been teaching him to fish the same way my father taught me 40 years ago. Early mornings on the dock, thermoses of coffee for me and hot chocolate for him, watching the mist lift off the lake. We'd caught 4 perch and a decent-sized walleye, and Noah couldn't stop talking about mounting the walleye on his bedroom partition. I'd built that lakeside cabin myself back in '95, not just a structure, but an escape hatch I fashioned board by board. Took me 2 summers working weekends and holidays. Every board I placed, every nail I drove. That's what I do. What I used to do. I'm a contractor. Was for 42 years before I retired last spring. Started as a carpenter's apprentice when I was 17. Worked my way up to running my own company, Bennett Construction. We built half the bungalows in Oakville. It's funny, you spend a lifetime building things, homes, businesses, a reputation, and you believe those foundations are unshakable. That history is a kind of armor. So, when I pulled into my driveway on Thursday afternoon and saw the construction dumpster sitting on my front lawn, my chest went tight. It was a metal coffin on my perfectly manicured grass, a clear sign that my $1.2 million home was already under siege. The bungalow I'd lived in for 23 years. It was more than just a house. It was a chronicle of my life. And I knew, the instant I saw that dumpster, that the next few minutes would define the end of that chronicle. The bungalow I'd bought after my first wife, Laura, passed from cancer. The bungalow where I'd raised my daughter, Sophie. The bungalow I'd eventually shared with Christine after we married 5 years ago. My bungalow. The paint, the porch swing, the tiny scuff marks on the doorframe. They were the physical record of love, loss, and endurance. To see a dumpster on the lawn was a violation, an early sign that the foundation of my security was already cracked. I got out of the truck slowly. Noah was chattering away about showing his mom the photos of the walleye, but I barely heard him. The front door was open. I could hear power tools inside, the whine of a circular saw, the bang of a hammer. I walked through my front door and stopped. Dust everywhere, drop cloths covering my furniture. 2 crew I'd never seen before were tearing down the partition between my master suite and the spare room. And they weren't just tearing down drywall. They were taking a chainsaw to my marriage. The partition that separated my private space from the rest of the bungalow. They'd already removed half of it. I could see straight through to my bed from the hallway. What the hell is going on? One of the crew looked up, surprised. "Oh, hey, you the homeowner?" "Yes, I'm the homeowner. Who are you, and what are you doing to my bungalow?" "Renovation project. We're opening up this whole space, adding windows, converting it to a streaming room." Streaming room. That's when Mason appeared from what used to be my master suite. My stepson, 28 years old, wearing one of those expensive streetwear designer sweatshirts that cost more than my first car. If you've ever had to deal with this kind of unearned entitlement, hit that subscribe button, because the story only gets crazier from here. Designer sneakers, phone in hand. Always the phone in hand. "Oh, you're back early." He didn't even look up from his screen. "Christine said you'd be gone until Saturday." "Mason," I kept my voice level. 42 years in construction taught you not to lose your temper on a job site. What is this? Renovation. Upgrading the place. He gestured around like he was showing off his own property. "This bungalow is stuck in the 90s. I need a proper streaming room space for content creation. The lighting in my current room is terrible." I looked at the crew. "Stop working right now." "Hey, we've got a timeline here," one of them said. "I don't care about your timeline. This is my bungalow. Stop working or I'm calling the authorities." They exchanged glances, put down their tools. Mason finally looked up from his phone. "Relax, dude." Christine approved this. "It's our bungalow. Our bungalow." I walked past him to the kitchen counter where I'd left my mail. My platinum card statement was sitting there open. I picked it up. $8,500 charged to it. 3 days ago, while I was at the lakeside cabin with Noah, lumber, drywall, electrical supplies, contractor deposit. Did you use my platinum card? Christine gave it to me. We're family. What's the big deal? The big deal is that it was $8,500 for a room to film a video game stream. $8,500 of my retirement, burned for a streaming room. I looked at this man. This 28-year-old man who'd never held a job for more than 6 months, who'd been building his social media brand for 3 years, who'd moved into my bungalow 2 years ago because he needed to save money for his business, who Christine defended every time I suggested maybe he should contribute to household expenses. He was the living antithesis of everything I had spent 42 years of honest work to build. The big deal, I said quietly, is that this is my bungalow. I built it. My name is on the title, and you just committed platinum card fraud. Fraud? He laughed. That laughter, it was the sound of complete, unearned entitlement, and in that moment, I knew the line had been crossed. The structural integrity of my marriage had failed. That's dramatic. It's a family expense. Did I authorize this charge? Christine did. Christine isn't on this platinum card account. He shifted uncomfortably. Look, man, do you think he knew this was fraud, or was he truly this oblivious? I want to know what you think in the comments below. He shifted uncomfortably. Look, man, she said it would be fine. You've got the money. You're retired. What else are you spending it on? I pulled out my phone and called Christine. She answered on the 3rd ring. Hey, hun, are you home? How was the fishing, Christine? Did you authorize Mason to use my platinum card to hire crew? A pause. He told me he needed to improve his workspace. He's trying to grow his channel, Douglas. We need to support him. Did you tell him he could charge $8,000 to my card? I didn't think about the exact amount. He said he'd keep it reasonable. $8,000 isn't reasonable. And did you tell him he could tear down a partition in my master suite? Another pause. He said he needed more space. This bungalow is big enough. Why are you being so difficult about this? Difficult? I'd paid every mortgage payment on this bungalow for 23 years. I'd replaced the roofline after the ice storm in 2013. I'd renovated the kitchen when Christine moved in. I'd built the deck out back where we had family barbecues. I'd fixed every leak, painted every partition, maintained every system. I was the constant caretaker, the unseen force that kept the whole thing standing. And now, for insisting on the basic laws of physics and finance, I was being called difficult. Christine, I'll talk to you when you get home. What time are you done work? I'm leaving now. I'll be there in 20 minutes. I hung up and looked at the crew. Who hired you? The older one pulled out his phone, showed me a text. Mason's number. This guy said his parents wanted a renovation, paid us $2,000 deposit. Do you have permits for this work? They exchanged looks again. He said he'd handle the permits. Of course he did. I pulled out my own phone and took photos. The demolished partition, the exposed framing, the electrical wires hanging loose. Then I walked closer and looked at what they'd cut through. My stomach dropped. That's a structural wall. And the moment I said it, every builder's instinct I had screamed that the entire roofline was about to collapse on my head, all for better YouTube lighting. The younger crew's face went pale. What? That partition? I pointed. It's structural wall. It supports the roofline. You can't just remove it without installing a proper laminated beam and supports. The kid said it wasn't structural. The kid doesn't know anything about construction. I looked up at the roofline. Already, I could see a slight sag in the drywall. You need to stop immediately. This is dangerous. We can install a laminated beam, not without a structural consultant's assessment and a permit. This is illegal work. Mason had been listening from the doorway. Oh my God, you're being so extra about this. It's fine. We'll figure it out, I turned to look at him. Really look at him. This entitled kid who'd never built anything in his life, who thought posting videos on YouTube Shorts was a career, who just put my bungalow in structural danger because he wanted better lighting for his content. I saw not a stepson, but a complete societal failure, a man who valued a flawless ring light over the fundamental safety of the roof over his head. The visual juxtaposition was staggering. The solid craft of 42 years versus the ephemeral vanity of a 15-second video. "Everyone out," I said. "Now. You can't just... This is my bungalow, my property. You've done unpermitted, illegal work that's compromised the structural integrity. I'm the homeowner, and I'm telling you to leave immediately, or I'm calling both the code enforcement officer and the authorities." The crew started packing up. They knew better than to argue with a homeowner who knew the code. Mason pulled out his phone and started filming. Wow. So, my stepdad is literally kicking out crew I hired to improve his bungalow. This is elder abuse, guys. This is what happens when... Turn that camera off in my bungalow. It's my content. I can film wherever. No, it's my bungalow. And in British Columbia, you need consent to record someone in their private residence. Turn it off, or I'll add that to the list of charges. He lowered the phone, but his face was red. Christine's going to hear about this. Christine's on her way. The crew packed up quickly, muttering apologies. The older one handed me his business card. "Look, we didn't know." The kid seemed legit. "If you want it finished properly, give me a call. We'll do it right." I took the card, waited until they'd loaded their truck and left. Then I stood in my gutted master suite and assessed the damage. 42 years as a contractor. I'd seen this before. Homeowners who hired cheap labor, skipped permits, made structural changes without understanding what they were doing. Half the renovation disasters I'd been called to fix started exactly like this. But this was my home. The home I'd maintained meticulously. The home I'd kept safe and sound through harsh Canadian winters and hot summers. And in 3 days, Mason had turned it into a code violation. I pulled out my phone and started documenting everything. Photos of the demolished partition, the exposed wiring, the sagging roofline, the lack of proper support where the partition had been, the electrical junction box they'd left hanging, every violation I could see. Then I went to my office and pulled out my file cabinet. I keep everything organized. Always have. It's the contractor in me. I found what I needed. Original architectural plans, the ones I'd drawn up myself in 1995, showing every partition, every support, every system, clearly marking which partitions were structural wall. The building permit from when I built the addition in 2001. The property title, Douglas James Bennett, sole owner. The platinum card statement showing Mason's unauthorized charges. I spread them out on my desk and took more photos. Then I called my attorney, Malcolm, an old friend from the Contractors Association. We'd worked together for years. I'd built his office bungalow back in 2008. "Malcolm, it's Douglas. I need advice on something." I explained the situation, the unauthorized charges, the illegal renovation, the structural damage. "That's straightforward," he said. "Platinum card fraud, trespassing. If he's not on the lease, property damage, you want to press charges. I want options first. I need to talk to my wife." Understood. "But Douglas, document everything. And I mean everything. Take photos, save receipts, record conversations if British Columbia's one-party consent laws apply, which they do. If you're part of the conversation, if this goes south, you'll want evidence. Already on it. Good man. Call me tomorrow and let me know what you want to do." I heard Christine's car in the driveway. I gathered my documents and met her at the door. She came in looking defensive. Mason called me. He said, "You humiliated him in front of the crew. Christine, come look at this." I led her to the master suite. She stopped when she saw the damage. "What happened to the partition?" "Mason hired crew to tear it down without permits." "That's a structural wall." Do you see the roofline sagging there? That's because there's no support. This could cause serious structural damage. She bit her lip. He said he was just opening up the space. I pulled out my phone and showed her the architectural plans. See this marking? That's the engineering symbol for a structural wall. You can't just remove it. Can't you just fix it? Not without a structural consultant's assessment, a proper permit, and several thousand in materials and labor. Christine, this isn't about me being difficult. This is about Mason making dangerous, illegal changes to my property without my knowledge or consent. I showed her the platinum card statement next. He charged over $8,000 to my card without asking me. He's my son, Douglas. He made a mistake. He's 28 years old. When does mistake become deliberate choices with consequences? She looked at the partition, at the papers in my hand, at my face. What do you want me to do? I want him to take responsibility. I want him to pay back the money he stole. He didn't steal. Unauthorized use of a platinum card is fraud, Christine. Legally, that's what it is. And I want him to pay for the repairs to fix this properly. He doesn't have that kind of money. Then he shouldn't have spent it. Mason appeared in the doorway. So what? You're going to sue me? Your stepson. Great family values, Douglas. I looked at him. Mason, I've been patient with you for 5 years. I've let you live here rent-free. I've paid for your food, your utilities, your Netflix subscription. I've listened to Christine defend your career as a content creator. I've watched you sleep until noon, play video games until 3 a.m., and contribute exactly nothing to this household. And now you've committed fraud and damaged my property. So yes, I'm going to hold you accountable. This is such... Christine, are you going to let him talk to me like this? Christine looked between us. I could see her struggling. Mason, honey, maybe you should apologize. Apologize for what? Trying to improve this outdated bungalow? For stealing, I said quietly. For property damage. For endangering the structural integrity of my home. He scoffed. Whatever, boomer. This is why your first wife's daughter doesn't even visit anymore. The room went silent. Sophie, my daughter from my marriage to Laura, she'd moved to Calgary after university, and we talked every week, but she rarely came home. Not because of me, but because of the relentless, quiet cruelty of Christine and Mason. Because Mason had borrowed money from her 3 years ago and never paid it back. Because Christine always took his side. The dual grief hit me then, the loss of the physical safety of my home, compounded by the slow, suffocating loss of my daughter's presence, all stemming from the same moral rot. Christine's face went red. Mason, that's enough. No, let him say what he wants. I kept my voice level. Let's get everything out in the open. Mason pulled out his phone again. You know what? My followers are going to love this. Entitled boomer kicks out his stepson for trying to make something of himself while living in a bungalow that's probably worth $1 million. $1.2 million, I said. I had it appraised last year, and it's worth that much because I've maintained it immaculately for 23 years. Exactly. You've got all this money and you won't help me build my brand? Your brand. I almost laughed. Mason, you have 47,000 followers. Do you know how many of them will still be there in 5 years? Do you know how many content creators actually make a living wage? You're 28. You need a real career. This is my real career. Then treat it like one. Get business insurance, pay taxes, create a business plan. Stop living off your mother and me. Christine stepped between us. Both of you stop. This isn't helping. I looked at my wife, the woman I'd married 5 years ago, the woman I'd thought I'd spend the rest of my life with. I searched her eyes for the partner I thought I knew, the one who valued truth and shared responsibility. But she was gone, replaced by a mother trapped by a toxic loyalty. Christine, I need to know. Are you going to support your son breaking the law and damaging our home, or are you going to acknowledge that what he did was wrong? He's my son. That's not an answer. He made a mistake. He's young. He'll pay you back. With what money? He hasn't had a job in 2 years. He's building his channel. 47,000 followers in 3 years, Christine. That's 15,000 a year. Do you know what the average content creator with that following makes? Maybe a few $100s a month if they're lucky. That's not a career. That's a hobby. Mason's face was bright red. Now, you don't know anything about social media. You're just a washed-up contractor who's jealous that I'm doing something modern. Modern doesn't pay for structural consultants. Modern doesn't fix code violations. And modern doesn't erase platinum card fraud. Are you actually going to press charges against my son? Christine's voice was shaking. I'm going to give him a choice. He can either pay back the $8,000 plus the cost of repairs, which will probably be another $15,000 to $20,000 once we factor in the structural consultant, the permits, and the labor, or I report the fraud to the authorities and to my platinum card company. That's not a choice. He doesn't have $25,000. Then he should have thought about that before he tore down a structural wall in my bungalow. Mason grabbed his keys. I'm out of here. This is toxic. Where are you going? Christine asked. To Connor's. At least his parents actually support him. He stormed out. I heard his car start, tires squealing as he backed out of the driveway too fast. Christine stood there, arms crossed. I can't believe you're doing this. Douglas. Doing what? Protecting my property, following the law, choosing your pride over my son. Christine, this isn't about pride. If that partition fails, the roofline could collapse. This is about safety, and it's about Mason learning that actions have consequences. He's family. I'm your husband. This is my bungalow. I built it. I maintain it. I pay for it. And Mason just damaged it because he wanted better lighting for his YouTube Shorts videos. She picked up her purse. I'm going to Connor's, too. Mason shouldn't be alone right now. Christine, I'll be back later. We'll talk when everyone's calmed down. She left. I stood in my gutted master suite surrounded by drywall dust and broken lumber and felt the weight of 42 years of building things settle on my shoulders. I'd built homes for hundreds of families. I'd built a business from nothing. I'd built a life with Laura, raised Sophie, buried Laura, rebuilt myself, and thought I'd built a new future with Christine. It was a moment of agonizing clarity, a final structural collapse of hope. But you can't build anything lasting on a foundation that won't support it. I pulled out my phone and called the Platinum Card Company, reported the fraud. They said they'd freeze the card, investigate the charges, and send me documentation. Then I called the code enforcement officer's office and reported the illegal work. They said they'd send someone out tomorrow. Then I called Malcolm back. I want to press charges, I said, and I want a protection order keeping Mason away from my property. I'll draft the paperwork tonight. You can pick it up tomorrow. Finally, I called an old colleague, Victor, a structural consultant I'd worked with for 30 years. Douglas, long time. What can I do for you? I need you to assess some damage to my bungalow. Structural wall that was partially demolished without support. Jesus, when? Today. Can you come tomorrow morning for you? Absolutely. Send me the address. I spent the evening cleaning up the dust, covering the opening with plywood to at least keep the heat in, and making a list of everything that needed to be done. By the time Christine came home at 10 p.m., I had a plan. She came in quietly. He's staying at Connor's for a few days. Okay, Douglas, can we talk? We sat at the kitchen table, the table I'd built from reclaimed barnwood 10 years ago. I reported the fraud to my Platinum Card Company, I said, and I've hired a structural consultant to assess the damage tomorrow, and I've filed for a protection order to keep Mason away from the property. Her face went pale. A protection order against my son? He committed a crime, Christine. Multiple crimes. platinum card fraud, property damage, illegal construction. If I don't handle this properly, I could be liable if something happens. You're treating him like a criminal. He committed fraud. That makes him a criminal. He's 28 years old. This will ruin his life. He ruined it himself when he decided to steal from me and damage my property. She was quiet for a long moment. What do you want me to do? I want you to support me, your husband, the man you married, the man whose home this is, and Mason. Mason is an adult. He made adult choices. He faces adult consequences. You're asking me to choose between you and my son. No, I'm asking you to acknowledge reality. Mason broke the law. What happens next is up to him. He can make it right, or he can face the legal system. But I'm not going to pretend it didn't happen. She stood up. I need to think. Take all the time you need. She went to our master suite, or what was left of it, and I heard the door close. I sat at the kitchen table for a long time, looking at the architectural plans I'd drawn 29 years ago, the measurements I'd calculated, the structure I'd planned so carefully, the home I'd built with my own hands. You can't build something solid on a broken foundation. The next morning, Victor arrived at 8. He spent 2 hours examining the damage, taking measurements, running calculations. When he finished, his face was grim. Douglas, this is bad. The roofline load is being distributed through this partition. Without it, you're looking at potential collapse within weeks, maybe days, depending on snow load. And we're heading into winter. What's the fix? You need a laminated beam installed here with proper support columns, and you need it done immediately. I'm talking emergency repair. This is a safety issue. Cost, materials, and labor, $12,000 to $15,000 minimum. And that's with me pushing my crew to prioritize it. I nodded. Write it up. I need the full engineering report for insurance and legal purposes. You're suing someone? My stepson did this. Victor's eyebrows went up, but he didn't comment. Professional courtesy. The code enforcement officer arrived an hour later. He took one look at the partition and whistled. Who did this work? Unlicensed crew hired by someone who doesn't own the property. He pulled out his tablet and started documenting. This is a red tag situation. No one can occupy this structure until it's repaired and passes inspection. Excuse me. Structural wall partially demolished without permit, without engineering, without proper support. This is a safety hazard. I'm red tagging the property. You need to vacate until repairs are completed. My home. The home I built. Red tagged because of Mason's stupidity. How long do I have? Today. Get your essentials and find somewhere else to stay. Once the repairs are done and an engineer signs off, you can reoccupy. He handed me the official notice. I read it twice, feeling something cold settle in my chest. Christine came out, saw the code enforcement officer, saw the red tag. What's happening? The bungalow is unsafe. We can't stay here until it's repaired. What? Where are we supposed to go? I'll stay at Sophie's old room at the lakeside cabin. You can stay wherever you want. This is insane. The code enforcement officer left. Victor left. I packed a bag with clothes, toiletries, my laptop, and important documents. Christine stood in the kitchen looking lost. Douglas, we need to talk about this. We can talk after the repairs are done. I need to coordinate with the crew, deal with my insurance company, and file a authorities report. I don't have time to debate whether Mason should face consequences. He's my son, and this is my bungalow. The bungalow I can't live in now because of your son. I walked out and drove to the lakeside cabin. It was cold. I hadn't winterized it yet, but it had heat and running water and a bed. I'd stayed in worse conditions on construction sites. I spent the next 3 days coordinating repairs. Victor's crew worked around the clock. The laminated beam cost $13,000. Installation was another $8,000. The code enforcement officer required additional reinforcement to meet current code, bringing the total repair cost to $23,460, plus the $8,000 Mason had charged to my platinum card. The full financial loss was $31,467. The platinum card company reversed Mason's charges after their investigation. The authorities took my statement and issued a warrant for Mason's arrest. Malcolm filed the protection order and it was granted. Mason wasn't allowed within 100 meters of my property. Christine called me every day, first angry, then pleading, then desperate. "Douglas, please drop the charges. He's terrified. He should be. He's my son. He made a mistake. A $30,000 mistake that left me homeless for a week. I'll make sure he pays you back." "With what money, Christine? Be specific." She couldn't answer that. On day 6, the repairs were complete. Victor signed off. The code enforcement officer removed the red tag. I moved back into my bungalow. Christine was there sitting in the living room. "We need to talk," she said. I sat down. "Okay, I've thought about this a lot, and I understand you're angry." "I'm not angry. I'm done." Her face crumpled. "What?" "I'm done, Christine. I've spent 5 years watching you enable Mason, watching you prioritize his feelings over our marriage, watching you defend his laziness, his entitlement, his complete lack of responsibility. And now I've spent $31,000 fixing the damage he caused because he wanted better lighting for his YouTube Shorts videos. He's my son. What was I supposed to do? Be a parent, not a friend. Teach him accountability. Set boundaries. But you never did. And now he's facing criminal charges, and you're asking me to fix that too. You could drop the charges. Why would I do that? Because I'm asking you to. Because I'm your wife. I looked at this woman I'd married. I thought she was strong, independent, capable, but she was none of those things when it came to Mason. She was enabling, codependent, and unwilling to see her son clearly. This was the ultimate betrayal, not the one-time theft, but the slow, consistent choice to prioritize her own emotional comfort over integrity, over law, and over her marriage. Christine, I can't stay married to someone who prioritizes their adult son over their husband, who enables criminal behavior, who asks me to sacrifice my financial security and my home for someone who has shown zero remorse. Are you asking for a divorce? I'm telling you that I can't do this anymore. She started crying. He's my son. I know, and that's why this won't work. She moved out the next day, went to stay with Mason at Connor's place. Mason's tribunal date was set for 3 weeks later. Malcolm said with my documentation, the charges would stick. First offense, he'd probably get probation and mandatory compensation, but he'd have a record. Sophie called me when she heard. "Dad, I'm sorry. Don't be. I should have done this years ago. He borrowed $3,000 from me and never paid it back." "I know. I never told you because I didn't want to cause problems with Christine. You can tell me now." We talked for an hour. She said she'd fly home for Christmas for the first time in 3 years. Mason ended up pleading guilty. The judge ordered him to pay compensation, $31,000, and gave him 2 years probation. He'd have to get a real job to make payments. Connor's parents kicked him out a month later when he couldn't contribute to rent. Christine filed for divorce. I didn't contest it. She got half of what we'd accumulated together, very little since I'd owned the bungalow before we married. She wanted to buy Mason a condo as a fresh start. I heard through mutual friends it didn't work out. Mason ended up renting a basement apartment in Sudbury. I spent Christmas at the lakeside cabin with Sophie and Noah. We fished through the ice, made hot chocolate, talked about Laura, about the old days, about the future. Sophie looked around the lakeside cabin one evening. "You built this, didn't you? Took me 2 summers. And the bungalow built that too. Why do you think Christine didn't get that? That you built these things? That they meant something? Because she saw them as assets, things to be used. I saw them as legacy, things to be preserved. Are you okay, Dad?" I looked out at the frozen lake, at the stars coming out. It was then I felt a true sense of triumph, not of revenge, but of restoration. I lost a marriage, but I kept my self-respect. I kept my home, and I kept my integrity. Was it worth it? Every time I look at that laminated beam supporting my roofline, I know exactly what it costs to fix someone else's mistake. Every time I see the architectural plans I drew, I remember who built that bungalow. And every time I don't have to enable a 28-year-old man-child, I feel a little bit more free. That's pretty philosophical for a contractor. I smiled. I've had a lot of time to think. 6 months later, I sold the bungalow, got a good price, bought a smaller place closer to the lakeside cabin, something I could maintain easily as I got older, something without the memories of Christine and Mason. Sophie visited more. Noah asked me to teach him carpentry. I showed him how to read architectural plans, how to measure twice and cut once, how to respect the structure you're working with. Why do you always say that, Grandpa? Respect the structure? Because buildings are like people, Noah. They have limits. You have to understand what they can carry, what they can't. Push too hard in the wrong place and everything comes down. Like when Mason broke the partition, exactly like that. I heard through mutual friends that Mason's YouTube Shorts channel never took off. He works at a customer service center now, making payments on his compensation. Christine remarried some guy she met at her book club. I heard he has adult children too. Maybe she learned something. Maybe not. I don't think about them much anymore. I think about the lakeside cabin I built, the architectural plans I drew, the structures that hold, the measurements that matter, the foundation that supports. I used to believe that my life's work was in wood and stone, in the unshakable certainty of a well-placed beam. But the truth, the painful, luminous truth, is that I spent my life building outward, homes, businesses, a reputation, while neglecting the most crucial structure of all, the emotional foundation of my own heart. I allowed fear of conflict and a desire for peace to become toxic enablement, and that slow rot was more dangerous than any structural wall collapse. It wasn't the $31,000 that taught me the final lesson. It was the quiet realization in my empty home that I had lost nothing essential. I had simply shed a broken foundation. The separation from Christine and Mason was a profound act of self-preservation, a professional contractor finally applying the building code to his personal life. Now, watching Noah learn to respect the structure, to measure twice, cut once, I see legacy differently. It's not about the dollar value of a home, but the moral integrity of the hands that build it. If you recognize a crack in your own foundation, a difficult choice, an accountability you've postponed, know this: the cost of integrity is always less than the price of compromise. Do not wait for a red tag on your own life. And if this story of standing your ground against entitlement is a message someone you know needs to hear, take a second to share this video with them. Tend to the structure of your life, not just its assets, and start today by measuring the true worth of your peace.